In the early hours of July 6, 2024, Sonya Massey made a decision that would cost her everything. The 36-year-old mother, terrified that someone was prowling around her Springfield, Illinois home. She trusted that law enforcement would protect her. Instead, within minutes of their arrival, she lay dying on her kitchen floor from a gunshot wound to the head. The deputy who killed her had a dark history of violence and misconduct that his employers chose to ignore. Body camera footage reveals the shocking truth about what really happened when help became horror, and how a simple pot of water became the excuse for an execution that would spark nationwide outrage. Welcome back to X by X Confidential, where we uncover the truth behind the cases that shake our nation. Thank you so much for watching our videos and being part of this incredible community that demands justice and accountability. If this case disturbs you as much as it disturbs us, please smash that like button to help us reach more people who need to see this truth. What you're about to hear is the shocking story of how a mother's call for help became her death sentence when Deputy Sean Grayson arrived at her door. It was just after midnight on July 6, 2024 in Springfield, Illinois. Most people were sound asleep in their beds, but 36-year-old Sonya Massey was wide awake and scared. Sonia lived alone in a quiet neighborhood called Woodside Township, just outside Springfield. She was a single mom who loved her two teenage kids more than anything in the world. Her son Malachi was 17, her daughter Jeanette was 15. But Sonia had been struggling. She had lupus, a disease that made her body attack itself. She also dealt with mental health problems and took medicine to help her feel better. That night, something outside her house scared her. Maybe she heard a noise. Maybe she saw a shadow. Whatever it was, it made her think someone was trying to break into her home. So Sonia did what any scared person would do. She picked up the phone and called 911. "I need help," she told the operator. "I think there's a prowler outside my house." The call went to the Sangamon County Sheriff's Office at 12:50 in the morning. Two deputies got the job to check on Sonia and make sure she was safe. One deputy was new to the area. His name was Sean Grayson. He was 30 years old and white. He lived in a town called Riverton, about 20 minutes away. But Sean Grayson had a secret. He had been fired from jobs before. He had been in trouble with his bosses. He had even been kicked out of the army. The people who hired him at the sheriff's office didn't know about all of Sean's problems. Or maybe they did know, but they hired him anyway. The other deputy with Sean that night was more experienced. He had been doing the job longer, but his name was never told to the public. Both deputies got in their police cars and drove through the quiet streets to Sonia's house on Hoover Avenue. They had no idea that this simple call for help would change everything. They thought they were going to help a scared woman and then go home. Instead, in less than 30 minutes, Sonya Massey would be dead, and Sean Grayson would be charged with murder. Sean Grayson was supposed to protect people, but his past told a different story. Sean was born in 1994 and grew up in central Illinois. When he was 20 years old, he joined the U.S. Army. He thought being a soldier would be his calling, but things went wrong fast. Sean worked as a mechanic at Fort Riley in Kansas. He was supposed to fix military trucks and equipment. Instead, he got in serious trouble. The Army kicked Sean out in February 2016. His discharge papers said he was guilty of serious misconduct. The Army wouldn't say what Sean did wrong, but it was bad enough that they didn't want him anymore. Most people would give up on law enforcement after that. Not Sean Grayson. In 2020, Sean started jumping from one police job to another. First, he worked part-time for the Pawnee Police Department. Then he moved to the Kincaid Police Department. After that, he went to the Virden Police Department. At every job, Sean had problems. His bosses said he needed more training. They said he moved too fast and made bad decisions. They said he wasn't good at writing reports. At one job, Sean took a test to see how well he could shoot his gun. He got a 30 out of 100. That's a failing grade, but somehow they let him pass anyway. Sean also got in trouble for drinking and driving. Not once, but twice. He was convicted both times. In 2022, Sean got a job at the Logan County Sheriff's Office. His new boss was a man named Nathan Miller. Nathan was the chief deputy, which means he was one of the top guys. At Logan County, Sean's problems got worse. He chased a car at almost 120 miles per hour. He never had a good reason to chase the car in the first place. When his boss told him to stop chasing, Sean kept going anyway. People also complained about Sean. A woman said he acted inappropriately when she was arrested. Her boyfriend said Sean got back at him for her complaint. Chief Deputy Miller had a long talk with Sean. It was recorded on tape. Miller told Sean he knew about problems at Sean's other jobs. He said cases were being dropped because Sean wasn't telling the truth in his reports. "Sean, I'm going to have a hard, straight-up conversation with you right now." Miller also said something else that was very important. He asked Sean a question that should have ended his police career forever. "How are you still employed with us?" But somehow, Sean kept his job. And when he applied for a new job at the Sangamon County Sheriff's Office, nobody told them about all these problems. The people who hired Sean either didn't know about his troubled past, or they knew and hired him anyway. Either way, it was a mistake that would cost Sonya Massey her life. In January 2023, Sean Grayson became a deputy with the Sangamon County Sheriff's Office. He had been there for about 18 months when he got the call to check on a scared woman named Sonya Massey. Sean thought he was going to help someone. Instead, he was about to become a killer. The days before July 6th were not good ones for Sonya Massey. She was having what doctors call a mental health crisis. On July 3rd, 2024, Sonya had to go to the hospital. She met with a mobile crisis team. These are special doctors and nurses who help people when their minds are not working right. The crisis team talked to Sonya and tried to help her feel better. They gave her some papers to take home, but Sonya was still struggling. The next day, July 4th, things got worse. Sonya called the police again. This time, she said her neighbor had hit her with a brick. She was scared and confused. When the police came, they found Sonya's car. Both windows were broken. Sonya told them her neighbor broke one window with the brick. She said she broke the other window herself when she was trying to get into her car to escape. The police could see that Sonya was having mental health problems. She had cuts on her hands from the broken glass. They took her to the hospital so doctors could help her. At the hospital, Sonya told the officer something strange. She said that earlier that day, police officers had tried to run her off the road. This probably wasn't true. It was likely part of her mental health crisis. The officer wrote in his report that Sonya had just been released from a mental health facility. She was getting treatment, but she was still very sick. The most important call came on July 5th. Sonya's mother, Sonya Massey, was very worried about her daughter, so she called 911. "My daughter is having a mental breakdown," Donna told the dispatcher, "but she's not dangerous." Then Donna said something that would become very important later. She begged the dispatcher, "I don't want you guys to hurt her." Donna was scared of what might happen if the police came to help Sonya. She even asked the dispatcher not to send any officers who might be prejudiced against her daughter. The Springfield Police Department took that call. They sent officers to check on Sonya. The officers talked to her, but Sonya didn't want to go to the hospital. The medical workers said she was okay for now. But less than 24 hours later, Sonya would call for help again. And this time, the wrong deputies would answer the call. All of these calls were in the computer system. When Sean Grayson and his partner got the call to check on Sonya, they could have looked up her history. They could have seen that she was having mental health problems. They could have seen that her own mother was worried about police hurting her. But there's no evidence that either deputy looked at Sonya's history before they went to her house. They had no idea they were about to meet a scared, sick woman who just needed help. If they had known, maybe things would have been different. Maybe Sonya Massey would still be alive today. It was 12:50 in the morning on July 6, 2024. Most of Springfield was asleep, but Sonya Massey was awake and afraid. She was alone in her house on Hoover Avenue. Something outside had scared her. Maybe she heard footsteps. Maybe she saw someone moving around her yard. Whatever it was, Sonya thought someone was trying to break into her home. So she did what millions of Americans do when they're scared. She called 911 and asked for help. "I think there's a prowler outside," Sonya told the dispatcher. She needed the police to come and make sure she was safe. The call went to the Sangamon County Sheriff's Office. 2 deputies were sent to help her. One was Sean Grayson. The other was an experienced deputy whose name was never released to the public. The deputies drove through the quiet streets to Sonya's neighborhood. It was a nice area with small houses and big yards. Sonia's house was a little outside the Springfield city limits, in a place called Woodside Township. When the deputies got there, they did what they were supposed to do. They searched around Sonia's house with flashlights. They looked in her backyard. They checked the sides of her house. They wanted to see if anyone was hiding or trying to break in, but they didn't find anyone. There was no prowler. There was no burglar. The only thing they found was Sonia's car in the driveway. It had broken windows from her problems a few days earlier. After searching for about 10 minutes, the deputies went to Sonia's front door. Sean Grayson knocked on the door. He knocked several times, but Sonia didn't answer right away. Inside the house, Sonia was probably scared. She had called for help, but now there were strangers at her door in the middle of the night. Her mind wasn't working right because of her mental health problems. Finally, after about 3 minutes, Sonia opened the door. The first words out of her mouth were, "Don't hurt me." Think about that. Sonia had called the police for help, but when they showed up, she was afraid they would hurt her. Her mother had been worried about the same thing just 1 day earlier. Sean Grayson seemed surprised by what Sonia said. "Why would I hurt you?" he asked her. "You called us." The deputies told Sonia they had searched around her house but didn't find anyone. Sonia seemed confused. She was using her cell phone and having trouble paying attention to what the officers were saying. The deputies could tell something was wrong with Sonia. She had trouble answering simple questions. When they asked if she was okay mentally, she said, "Yes, I took my medicine." Sonia also said, "I love y'all" to the deputies. She was trying to be nice and friendly. She wanted them to help her, not hurt her. But the deputies still needed to fill out a report about their visit. So they asked to come inside Sonia's house to get more information. This was the moment when everything started to go wrong. If the deputies had just left after checking the yard, Sonia would still be alive today. But they decided to go inside. And once they were inside Sonia's house, Sean Grayson would make a decision that would change everything forever. When the deputies stepped inside Sonia's house, they could see she was struggling. The house was messy. There were clothes everywhere. The kitchen counter was covered with stuff. This wasn't because Sonia was lazy or dirty. It was because her mind wasn't working right. When people have mental health problems, sometimes they can't take care of their homes the way they normally would. The deputies asked Sonia for her identification. She started looking through her things, but she was having trouble finding it. She seemed confused and kept getting distracted. While Sonia was looking for her ID, she asked the deputies if she could get her Bible. Sonia was a religious person. She found comfort in her faith, especially when she was scared or upset. The other deputy walked around the side of the house to check on a car in the driveway. Sonia had told them it wasn't her car. The deputy wanted to write down the license plate number for his report. That left Sean Grayson alone inside the house with Sonia. This was when Sean noticed something that would lead to disaster. On Sonia's stove, there was a pot of water. It was sitting on a burner, and the burner was still on. The water was hot and steaming. "We don't need a fire while we're here," Sean told Sonia. He wanted her to turn off the stove. This seems like a reasonable request. Sean was probably worried about safety. He didn't want anyone to get burned or start a fire while they were in the house. Sonia got up and walked over to the stove. She turned off the burner. Then she picked up the pot to move it out of the way. The other deputy had come back inside by now. When he saw Sonia holding the hot pot, he stepped back. "Away from your hot, steaming water," he said with a little laugh. Sonia seemed to think this was funny too. "Away from my hot, steaming water?" she said, almost like she was making a joke. But then Sonia said something that changed everything. As she held the pot of hot water, she said, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus." In some religious traditions, people say "I rebuke you" when they want to ward off evil or danger. It's like saying "stay away" or "leave me alone," but in a spiritual way. Sonia probably didn't mean anything threatening by it. But Sean Grayson didn't understand. Or maybe he understood but didn't care. Instead of staying calm, Sean got angry fast. "You better fucking not," Sean yelled at Sonia, "or I swear to God I'll fucking shoot you in the freaking face." Think about what just happened. Sonia was a small woman. She was 5 feet 3 inches tall and weighed only 112 pounds. She was holding a pot of water in her own kitchen. She had said a religious phrase that was meant to protect her, and Sean Grayson's response was to threaten to shoot her in the face. Sonia immediately knew she was in danger. "I'm sorry," she said, and she ducked down behind the kitchen counter. But Sean wasn't done. He pulled out his gun and pointed it right at Sonia. The other deputy pulled out his gun too. Both deputies started yelling at Sonia to drop the pot. "Drop the fucking pot!" they screamed. Sonia was crouched behind the counter, scared and confused. She was holding a pot of water in her own home. She had called these men for help. Now they had guns pointed at her and were screaming threats. Sean Grayson took 3 steps toward Sonia. He was moving around the kitchen counter trying to get closer to her. And then, after just a few seconds of yelling, Sean Grayson made a choice that would haunt him for the rest of his life. He pulled the trigger. Sean Grayson fired his gun 3 times. The sound of gunshots shattered the quiet night in Woodside Township. 3 loud bangs echoed through Sonia's kitchen. 1 bullet missed, another bullet missed. But the 3rd bullet found its target. It hit Sonya Massey in the head just below her left eye. Sonia collapsed to the floor behind the kitchen counter. Blood began pooling around her head. The pot of water crashed to the ground. In just a few seconds, a scared woman who had called for help became a dying victim of the very people she had asked to protect her. The other deputy immediately got on his radio. "Shots fired," he called out to the dispatcher. "We have a female with a head wound." The deputy who hadn't shot anyone started to leave the kitchen. He wanted to get his medical kit from his car to try to help Sonia. But Sean Grayson stopped him. "No," Sean said. "It's a headshot. She's done. You can go get it, but that's a headshot. There's nothing you can do, man." Think about what Sean was saying. He had just shot an unarmed woman in her own home. Now he was telling his partner not to even try to save her life. Sean kept talking. "What else do we do?" he said. "I'm not taking hot steaming water to the face." Sean was already making excuses. He was trying to justify why he had shot Sonia. But his reasoning didn't make sense. Sonia was a small woman with a pot of water. Sean was a trained police officer with a gun and a bulletproof vest. Even if Sonia had thrown the water at him, which she never did, it wouldn't have been life-threatening. The other deputy could see that Sonia was still breathing. "We can at least try to stop the bleeding," he said. Finally, Sean agreed to let his partner try to help Sonia. But it was too late. The damage was done. Paramedics arrived within minutes. They worked hard to save Sonia's life. They put her in an ambulance and rushed her to St. John's Hospital in Springfield. But there was nothing they could do. The bullet had caused too much damage. Doctors at the hospital tried everything they could, but Sonya Massey was pronounced dead. While the paramedics were working on Sonia, Sean Grayson walked outside. Other police officers had arrived at the scene. Sean talked to them like nothing had happened. "Yeah, I'm good," Sean told the other officers. Then he said something that showed how he really felt about what he had done. "This fucking Beantinch is crazy," Sean said about Sonia. This was how Sean Grayson talked about a woman he had just killed. A woman who had called for help. A woman who was someone's daughter and someone's mother. But Sean wasn't done making mistakes. There was something else he had forgotten to do. Something that would become very important later. Sean Grayson had never turned on his body camera. The other deputy had turned on his camera when he arrived at Sonia's house. His camera recorded the whole thing, but Sean only turned on his camera after he had already shot Sonia. This meant Sean was trying to hide what he had done. The camera had captured it all. The threats, the shooting, the lack of medical care. And soon, the whole world would see exactly what Sean Grayson had done to Sonya Massey. After Sean Grayson killed Sonya Massey, something strange happened. The police didn't tell the truth about what had occurred. Sonia's father, James Wilburn, got a phone call that his daughter was dead. But the police didn't tell him that a deputy had shot her. Instead, James was led to believe that the prowler Sonia had called about was the one who killed her. The police made it sound like a burglar had broken into Sonia's house and murdered her. "I was under the impression that a prowler had broken in and killed my baby," James said later. Never did they say that it was a deputy involved shooting. James only learned the truth when his brother read about it on the internet. Can you imagine how that felt? Finding out that the police officers who were supposed to protect your daughter were actually the ones who killed her? This wasn't an accident. Someone made a decision not to tell Sonia's family what really happened. They wanted to hide the truth. But the truth has a way of coming out, especially when there's video evidence. The Illinois State Police took over the investigation. The state police detectives started looking at all the evidence. They talked to witnesses. They examined the crime scene. And most importantly, they watched the body camera video. What they saw on that video shocked them. The video showed that Sean Grayson was not in immediate danger when he shot Sonia. She was crouched behind a kitchen counter, holding a pot of water. There was a counter between her and Sean, which gave him protection. If Sean was really afraid of the hot water, he could have stepped back. He could have moved away. He could have talked to Sonia calmly and asked her to put the pot down. Instead, he chose to shoot her 3 times. The state police brought in an expert on police use of force. This expert studies police shootings to determine if they were justified or not. The expert watched the video and made his conclusion. Sean Grayson's use of deadly force was not justified. The expert said it was like an officer intentionally and unnecessarily putting himself in front of a moving vehicle and then justifying use of force because of fear of being struck. In other words, Sean had created the dangerous situation himself and then used that as an excuse to shoot someone. On July 17, 2024, just 11 days after the shooting, a grand jury was presented with the evidence. The grand jury didn't take long to make their decision. They returned a 5-count indictment against Sean Grayson. Sean was charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder. He was also charged with aggravated battery with a firearm and official misconduct. First-degree murder is the most serious charge you can get. It means the prosecutors believe Sean planned to kill Sonia, or that he knew his actions would likely cause her death. The same day Sean was indicted, he was fired from the Sangamon County Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Jack Campbell said Sean did not act as trained or in accordance with our standards. But by then, it was too late. The damage was done. Sonya Massey was dead, and her children no longer had a mother. Soon the whole world would see the video of what Sean Grayson had done. And everyone would ask the same question: how did this man ever become a police officer in the first place? On July 22, 2024, the world finally saw what really happened in Sonya Massey's kitchen. The Illinois State Police released 36 minutes of body camera video. It showed everything from the time the deputies arrived at Sonia's house until after they shot her. The video was shocking. People across America watched as Sean Grayson threatened to shoot an unarmed black woman in her own home. They watched as he pulled out his gun and fired 3 times at a scared, confused woman who had called for help. Civil rights lawyer Ben Crump spoke for Sonia's family. He said the video would shock the conscience of America. It is that senseless, that unnecessary, that unjustifiable, that unconstitutional, Crump said. President Joe Biden released a statement saying Sonia's family deserves justice. He said, "Americans should be able to call for help without fearing for our lives." Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker said he was enraged that another innocent black woman had her life taken from her at the hands of a police officer. But the most heartbreaking words came from Sonia's own family. Her 17-year-old son Malachi spoke at a news conference. "My mother means everything to me," he said. "I love her with my whole heart." Her father, James Wilburn, said something that no parent should ever have to say. "The only time I will see my baby again is when I leave this world." Protests began in cities across America. People marched in New York, Atlanta, and Hartford, Connecticut. They carried signs that said, "Say her name and justice for Sonia." The protesters wanted to make sure Sonya Massey was not forgotten. They wanted to make sure her death led to changes in how police officers are hired and trained. And slowly, those changes began to happen. Sheriff Jack Campbell announced he would retire early because of the shooting. He was replaced by a new sheriff who promised to reform the department. In February 2025, Sonia's family reached a $10 million settlement with Sangamon County. It was the largest settlement in the county's history. But the family didn't just want money. They wanted to prevent other families from going through what they had experienced. In May 2025, the Illinois House of Representatives passed a new law. It was called Sonya Massey's Bill. The law requires better background checks before police officers can be hired. If this law had existed before Sean Grayson applied for his job, maybe he never would have been hired. Maybe Sonya Massey would still be alive today. Sean Grayson's murder trial is scheduled to begin on October 20th, 2025. He faces 45 years to life in prison if he's convicted. But for Sonia's family, no amount of prison time will bring her back. No amount of money will fill the hole in their hearts. Sonya Massey was 36 years old when she died. She should have been celebrating her 37th birthday with her children. Instead, her family held a memorial service. Sonia's story shows us that calling the police for help can sometimes be dangerous, especially if you're having mental health problems. It shows us that the people we trust to protect us can sometimes be the ones who hurt us the most. But Sonia's story also shows us something else. It shows us that even when powerful people try to cover things up, justice can still be served. Sean Grayson thought he could get away with murder. He thought he could kill an innocent woman and make up a story about why it was necessary. He was wrong. The body camera video told the real story. And now Sean Grayson will have to face the consequences of what he did on that terrible night in July. Thank you for watching this difficult but necessary investigation into the Sonya Massey case. Stories like this remind us why we must never stop fighting for justice and accountability in our system. If you believe this case deserves more attention, please smash that like button and share this video with others who need to see the truth. Subscribe and hit the notification bell because we'll continue following this case through the trial and beyond. Here at X by X Confidential, we won't stop until justice is served. What part of this investigation shocked you the most? Let me know in the comments below. Your voice matters in demanding the change our communities desperately need.